was president, I would do probably what I would have been doing for the period of time that I was president. I would be very, very tough on the borders, and I would be not allowing certain people to come into this country without absolute perfect documentation.
GOP frontrunner Donald Trump telling NBC's Today Show yesterday that the attacks in Belgium demonstrate the need for our nation to get tougher concerning its own borders. And there are also concerns now about our visa waiver program. 38 countries currently in that program, which means people from those countries can travel here to the U.S. without a visa or getting vetted by our State Department. Belgium and France are two nations that are part of that program, meaning European nationals turned radical Islamists can come into this country with little trouble. To talk more about this, we're pleased to be joined by retired Green Beret and the CEO of Mission America, Lieutenant Colonel D. Scott Mann. Scott is also the author of the book Game Changers: Going Local to Defeat Violent Extremists. And via Skype from New York City, former INS officer Michael Cutler. Michael testified before the 9/11 Commission. Boy, you hear about this stuff, and Colonel, it's pretty easy. We should stop this waiver program, should we not?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, JD. You know, these jihadists that have gone over to Syria and Iraq, when they return home, that's when they're most dangerous. Once these guys go over and they get their combat training and they've immersed themselves on the battlefield, it's when they return home that they are extremely dangerous. And if these guys are able to then make their way over to the United States without any kind of obstacles or challenges, you've got a combat-hardened, well-trained Islamist in your midst, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And it absolutely has to stop.
Michael, you and I have talked many times about the need to fortify our physical borders, but in terms of air travel, since it is so pervasive and this visa waiver program, it's almost like putting up a neon sign saying to these jihadis, hey, y'all come on to the United States.
Oh, we've absolutely lit the approach lights. Thank you for having me as well. And it's great to share the stage, if you will, with the serviceman. Colonel, thank you for your service. You know, the 9/11 Commission stated that targeting travel is at least as powerful a weapon against terrorists as targeting their money. But the thing that's being left out of the conversation is beyond trying to keep terrorists out of the United States, which should be the primary goal, whether it's through a more stringent visa requirement and eliminating the visa waiver program altogether, and it's something I've testified about before numerous congressional hearings. We need to have meaningful enforcement of the immigration laws from within the interior of the United States. 3 of the 9/11 hijackers were actually stopped by police just days before the attacks. Imagine if they had contacted police and said, hey, we've got some illegal aliens here. We might well have thwarted 9/11 without even realizing it. In law enforcement, we call that the principle of randomness.
Yeah, just enforcing existing laws, but this administration is not eager to do it. And you also have the status of political refugees. For example, on our southern border right now, we understand that thousands of Cubans are coming across that border and just being released into the U.S. So is this another situation, Colonel, of just, I don't want to say benign neglect because it has an impact, but this administration is hands off?
Yeah, look, JD, I think we're just going to have to acknowledge that this administration, man, they're just not going to get it done. They're not going to try to get it done. And I think what we're going to have to really start doing is demanding that the next batch of politicians coming in are going to get it done. And right now, I'm just not seeing that. That's why we're doing the contracttoprotectamerica.org to demand that our politicians make a change. If we don't lock this southern border down soon, I think we're going to reap a cataclysmic attack here in the homeland.
Well, so we have a failure to enforce the law. Michael, you and I have visited about this many times before, but I guess the question at hand is this. Let's make it real simple. Donald Trump suggests that we should get together to ensure that radical Islamists don't come here. Bottom line, Michael, should we just freeze all immigration, say no more people until we get a handle on it, whether you're a Presbyterian from Portugal or someone of the Islamic faith from a country like Jordan?
Well, I don't know that we can do that. We admit tens of millions of non-immigrant visitors. But again, nothing happens to anybody who violates the terms of their admission. And you have presidential candidates, including one from the Republican Party, who said, well, we should keep out the Syrians we can't vet, but we should provide lawful status to millions who are already here. But what's the vetting process for aliens who evade the border inspection process altogether? We've got to get serious. We've got to look at the 328 ports of entry, and we have to have meaningful interior enforcement. That's the component no one talks about, and it's the most critical because it would go after the fraud, and it would make it impossible for terrorists to embed themselves, or at least more difficult for them to embed themselves in our country once they do get here.
And we will have to leave it right there. Michael Cutler tonight from New York City, and Colonel D. Scott Mann, thank you very much. You heard what they had to say. I'd like to get your comments. Newsmaxtv.com/comments is the place to send them. Back with the way I see it after this.